Welcome to our evyAI Community Spotlight, where we interview our community members so you can learn about them, connect with them, and build real relationships. Today, we have a really special guest for this program. Lance is one of our most beloved members. So, Lance, welcome to the evyAI Community Spotlight. Please introduce yourself.
Juan, thank you for having me. Nice to see you again. And I am, by introduction, I run a small consulting firm in Toronto, Canada. We have clients around the United States and Canada, and we've worked a little bit overseas as well, primarily in creative tech, creative industries. So historically, animation, visual effects, video gaming, that side of the business in production as a vendor. But we have branched out into marketing and advertising. But again, I often sort of say if it's a creative area, i.e., it's creative director, design, marketing, we've done operations work and sales. So it's very broad in places, but I often end up leaning back into if it's a creative related thing, we're specialists in that area. And I was an HR director for many years as well and head of talent acquisition. So I've helped companies staff up quickly or do individual headhunts for, VP of something or, whether it's sort of director, VP, and C level, we've worked a lot with executive teams to help manage and find and select people for them. How's that, Juan? Is that a good enough introduction?
That's an amazing introduction. I didn't know that you were so in deep into the creative world. And I think that a lot of people can benefit from learning about that with these AI things and that kind of stuff. Something that is going to keep real is the essence, right? So
Mm-hmm.
regarding about that, Lance, who is your ideal client? Who do you serve and how do you serve them?
Yeah, I think I break it down into three targets. One of them is a company that potentially has a challenging recruit on. So they need to find a senior manager, a senior director, vice president, and potentially they've already tried for a while and there's something holding them back and they need a specialist to come in and take over the search and just be dedicated to that one opening to fill it. The second one we've done many times is when a company has landed two or three large projects at the same time and their hiring needs have spiked and they don't have the infrastructure to do that in-house. We kind of bolt on. We're our own Chrome extension. We basically bolt into their unit and build a small team for them, and we handle a lot of the onboarding as well as the recruiting and the screening and the interview process for them. And the third one, primarily, sometimes I go in as a fractional vice president of operations or talent acquisition myself. So, as an example, a client called years ago in Montreal in Canada and said, "Hey, we're reorging a company right now. We need a couple general managers in a few spots. Can you come in for 3 or 4 months while we're interviewing for positions for this role?" And I said, "Sure." That role turned into almost a year because they moved me then from division to division to help out. The more I knew about their business, the more I became sort of a valuable partner for them. So I've done roles like that. I tell people I'm very portable. I have a bag by the door and I can be on a plane in an hour and I'm gone. So I love those special assignments. I feel like I'm, a Marine behind enemy lines or something, and I have to quickly figure out what's happening and then figure out where I need to be to add value and what do I need to maintain for them and where do I need to plug in and potentially bring more value to the equation than they thought they might have hired me for. And I love doing that. If I can plus a role for somebody, that really leaves a good taste in their mouth, leaves a good impression, and hopefully leads to more referrals after, because I'd say 90% of our business comes through word of mouth.
100%. And I think that you have a really big challenge in that because in all of those roles, you need to be in charge of people, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people can be complex, everybody is a whole world. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Lance. Uh,
Yeah, one sometimes it's that sort of joke about landing behind enemy lines. Sometimes the troops are hostile, and so I have to figure out who needs a talking to and who needs some time one on one. But to your point, yeah, it very much is a people business, and you can't please everybody. But often the job is, could I simmer things down a little bit?
uh-huh.
And get some communication potentially coming in an area that maybe it got blocked, or champion a cause, get in there and try and find out what happened before I got there and see if I can fix anything. Can I band-aid something basically while I'm there? And often, like sometimes it's just even been onboarding new employees. A couple places that were onboarding quickly, and their onboarding process, from my background, wasn't in place enough. It wasn't well enough ironed out. So I got involved with that as well. And so that new employees came in, they were better oriented. They understood the company, they understood who their boss was and where to go for help. And because sometimes, 2, 3 weeks in, a new person is kind of floundering and they're
Yeah.
not sure who to talk to. So sometimes just operationally, it's very um, fundamental to even fix a process like that and say, hey, we need this on day one and this on day two and this on day five. Like by Friday, these things need to happen on a checklist. And somebody needs to be monitoring this. Otherwise, they're assuming it happened, right? So that's been
Right.
kind of the headspace sometimes, is just to make sure things are functioning and make sure someone's checking up and so on, so on.
That's right, Lance. And talking about that, I want to make the next question regarding to that. We are people, and people, us as persons, we are not perfect, right? So, Lance, what is a mistake that you made in your career that you think is worth sharing, and what lesson did you learn from it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Juan. I think in my early days, I was probably too hot-headed. You could see a problem and you attack, right? Like this has to get fixed, right? Very passionate, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I learned I would come up against executive teams and they'd be like, "We're not gonna fix this right now," and I'd be like, "No, but it's stupid. We should fix this right now." I was very, very kind of like on the sleeve, wearing my heart on my sleeve. As
Uh-huh.
I got older, I would now ask questions. Hey, I noticed this. Is this a priority? It's a whole different way of looking at the exact same thing. Now you're asking a question to gauge their response, because sometimes they'll be like, not really, or, oh, that's a great thing you brought up, but we don't have time or resources to fix it. We saw it too. Now you're not accusing, now you're consulting, right? And you're asking, hey guys, I'm not even sure if this is important, but I saw this thing. Is it important? No, it's not. Or, oh, whatever the background is, now you've invited a conversation rather than saying, this has to get fixed. And then condemning, because then they take it defensively, they take it personally, they take it even professionally that they haven't fixed it yet. And so, anyways, that's to answer your question. I think in my earlier days that was a um, lesson to be learned in diplomacy: how to talk to people, how to not accuse or point fingers, how to get other people to come side with things and act in a way that invites them in. That would be, I think, for sure. In my early 20s and probably early 30s, I was very passionate about fixing things. And the more you get into a company, the more you get closer to the CFO, the more you realize there isn't money to fix everything at the same time. And some things need to get prioritized on the schedule. And some of those things will drop off the schedule. And if you want to be a champion, you have to put them back on the schedule and push a little bit. But you
Mhm.
have to do so in a way that is times or very diplomatic, I think is the kind word.
Okay, sorry. Think that my internet break just a little, but we understand. The important thing right now that you said, and the thing that the message that you want to give the community is that we need to be more diplomatic, because okay, being passionate about something is great, right? But sometimes it can blind the things that we are doing, right? I love that.
Yeah, the other thing, I was talking to somebody the other day about this. Go back to there's a management coach from a long time ago called Stephen Covey, and
Uh-huh.
he has these four quadrants. And like one is like important and urgent, the other one is not important, not urgent, and then the other two are like versions of that. But he said a priority can go during the week from one quadrant to another, or in a month. And so he said you basically have to understand who you're talking to and understand what their quadrants look like,
Yeah.
because yours are different. And so the idea is it really urgent? Is it really important? It might be important to you, and it might be urgent to you, but it might not be urgent to the other person, right? So, and I love management primers like that, where you can put things on a graph or a scale and then kind of start using these tools to connect with people and to also interpret what their quadrants look like, because they might have five things that are urgent today. Your urgent thing is not going to get a second of their time. They have no time today for your urgent thing, right? So
That's
then you have to just try to schedule, yeah. Anyways, that's I find it's the harmony and the rhythm in different people in different offices, and you have to really understand your boss, understand what your boss or your client needs, and interface with them in a way that meshes or coordinates well with what their needs are, what their interests in there, and what's urgent to them.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lance. I think that we are getting so much gold from this. And right now, this is one of my favorite questions for this kind of interviews. And it is, what is a fun fact about yourself that is super interesting? Something that the ABI community absolutely needs to know about you.
Ah, that's interesting. Question one. I've been riding motorcycles since I was 16 years old.
No joke.
It's my Yeah, it's my fountain of youth, my friend. Every time I start a motorcycle, and something in my head says I'm 16 still. So, but as I got older, I met a group of people who ride them off-road in the woods and trails and far and remote locations. So we have satellite phones because we're far away from cell phone towers, and we go to very remote parts of the earth. And we have backpacks and luggage on the bike, but we are going in areas where sometimes nobody has been for a long, long time.
Uh-huh.
And for me, there's nothing better because you're so far away from civilization, your phone doesn't work. So
Uh-huh.
you can't be doing anything, right? And what you have to do is just be like a deer or some animal because you're surrounded by the woods or logging roads or forests or mountains and rivers and creeks and streams. And it's just freeing. Like I guess some people like flying a small plane or some people go camping or hiking. For me, this thing of riding motorbikes into crazy areas far away from civilization is, if I could do that full time, I would do that full time. It's so much fun.
And that's amazing because it leads you to a part of of the human being that is really different when you are out there with nothing else to do. You're by yourself, right? That's what I'm trying to say. You don't have
Yeah.
communication. You have like you need to ration your food, your
Yeah.
water, and that kind of stuff. And the beautiful thing about that is that you can be around I will say real danger, right? Because right
Yeah.
now when we are in cities, in really big towns or that kind of stuff, we have abundance everywhere,
Right.
everywhere, everywhere. When we go to the little things, yeah, I think that is something that can change your mind. I love that you ride bikes. I want to learn how to ride a bike actually.
Excellent. Yeah, it's again, I think of it like some people love downhill skiing because they get a rush from that. They get dopamine from it, right? And some people are whatever their passion is, running, cycling, whatever. But since I was a little kid, uh, before I even drove a car, I had a summer job, and the guy had all these old motorbikes in the shop. And
Uh-huh.
at the end of the summer, he said, "I can give you your last paycheck before you go back to school, or I can give you one of those motorbikes."
Oh my god. Yeah,
Imagine you're 16 years old. It's like a no-brainer. Like, keep the check, buddy. I'm taking the bike.
yeah.
So that's how I started. And it's in my blood. Like people don't understand it, but they understand it if they have the same problem. Sort of, I call it a problem, right? Like it's like if they just have to go downhill skiing, as an example, or they have to go hiking or they have to go running because it's a chemical thing. It is a dopamine, and but for me too, it's like I'm out with friends, like-minded friends. We are using GPSs usually to navigate through the woods. Um, you meet the most interesting characters. You run into some wildlife occasionally. You camp off the motorcycle. Um, it's just very good for the mind, I think, to get away from all technology, breathe the air, smell the pine trees, smell the pine cones, smell the water. Sometimes, quick story, years ago, we got deep in the bush and this whole valley was flooded and
Uh-huh.
we couldn't cross.
No.
And there was a huge beaver dam. These beavers had like logged up and flooded this whole valley. And we didn't know on the map because we were like 3 hours from civilization. We were like, how are we going to get through this? And one of the guys crawled out on the beaver dam and started pulling wood out of the beaver dam.
No.
And then when we saw, we all started pulling wood. So we made a little channel, a couple channels in the beaver dam, and we drained the whole valley by about 2 feet of water. And then we rode through the water. Like it was up, past our boots, but we were able to ride through the water. We couldn't go in initially because the motorcycle would breathe in the water and kill the
Uh-huh.
motors. So but we left all the wood right there for the beavers because we thought they'll be back. they're gonna fix this and flood it again, right? But anyways, it was quite a day because we were hours behind, and again, one of the guys just had a great idea. He's like, let's drain the swamp. Let's drop the water level. And it went down like at least 18 inches, maybe in an hour or two, slowly draining. And then we rode through the water through the other side because we were so deep in the woods, it would have been 3 hours more to get out of the woods if we turned around. So I was like, we have to go forward. But anyways, that was fun. And again, we're very resourceful because I was thinking how it's going to happen here. We are late. We are way behind schedule. And this guy just took matters in his own hand, problem solved. He's like, let's make a valve, make a channel in the beaver dam and lower the whole valley. So, and I'm sure those beavers were back like in a couple days probably and
Nah,
fixed
100%.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're engineers. They know how to fix things. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that I relate to those kind of stories. I have some friends that we went riding not motorcycles but bicycles, right,
Yeah.
from Argentina to Uruguay, and I have a bunch of stories
Wow.
about that.
Wow.
And a really good question following up with that is that it's better to do these kind of things when you are with more people, with friends, right? So I have a question for that. Why should people connect with you, and how you can genuinely add value to people's lives?
That's a great question. Thank you, Juan. I appreciate that. I probably am one of those people who like to look outside the box sometimes. Uh, and that's where I think sometimes in recruiting even I've brought in like the candidate that doesn't match the brief. Oh, we need this and we need that, we need this. I'm like, this guy's got some of that or this person has some of that, but not all of it. However, when I interview them and I ask them certain questions, they answer really well. And so I'm trying to chart beyond the resume, beyond the tick boxes or the Excel sheet or whatever, the human.
All right.
Interview the person, right? And many times in my career, I have had this thing where the client says, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And I often say it's like a prescription, right? You go to the doctor, you say, I have this thing. The doctor says, oh, get this prescription filled. You need these drugs. And it's a similar analogy for sometimes recruiting where someone says, I need that, blah, 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 blah. And we present them 3 or 4 candidates that match exactly what they want. And again, my analogy is like I give them the drugs they want. This will fix your eyesight and this will fix your hearing, whatever, as an analogy. However, the fourth one or the fifth one, I put in call it a dark horse or a light but right. They're kind of light. They don't match everything, but they feel like the right person for that company.
Okay.
They feel like they have a culture vibe. They are bringing something interesting that I think the client might be interested in, but it's a test. And it's amazing sometimes, Juan, when they come back and they go, number 4, we love her. And I'm like, yeah, but she doesn't really match the brief. They go, we don't care. We're going to hire her. So the likability, you know what I mean? Like it's not even on the schedule or the request sheet, but we get somebody that's close. And again, we present strength first. We present, here's exactly what you wanted. Here are the kind of people that match the profile exactly. But if I can I introduce you to somebody who's maybe light but right? They don't have everything, but I think there's something unique and interesting. Can you? So anyways, back to your question. It's that kind of thing. And I think this is why it's funny that, we have AI and all this technology and everything. At the end of the day, we're still going to interact with humans. And that dynamic is very, very critical and very important, right? And even like CEOs looking forward right now and vice presidents and anybody in that leadership management space, they can hire bums in seats, so to speak. They can fill roles. But if you want to create a culture, it's more about those individual pieces. Like if it's a recipe, you got to get it right. And I often say it's like baking, right? Cooking, you can mess around. Baking, you can't mess around, right? Something's not going to rise properly, right? Baking is very precise measurements. This much soda, this much, baking powder, and so on. Otherwise, the bread doesn't come up right. So I hope that answers it. It's that drilling into the humans that you're working with, because once that team gels, if they get along really well, they do amazing things, right? They challenge each other. They get along great. I mean, you've seen it even with Joe's team behind closed doors. Like there's quite a chemistry that goes on, right? How do we make the platform better? How do we engage more people? How do we, and that's one of the things. If I could plug evyAI for a second, the community is amazing, and I think they take their energy from Joe, directly from Joe, right? Because he's like this kind of unbelievable force. He's happy all the time. He's very positive, and I think that gets replicated in the culture of the users. The people that have subscribed are reflecting on that because as you've seen, they volunteer their time for the platform and for the community. Does
100%.
that answer that question?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it actually it's like, yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lance. And I think that is almost like an instinct, right? You know what, who is the right people for the right company and that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, thank you for
Well,
sharing that.
well,
And
and this, sorry, one more thing. It's just like it's funny because we see agentification now and bots doing all sorts of things, which is incredible. And I think they're screening a lot of the grunt work out of a lot of different administrative processes, which is amazing. But I think once you get that out of the way, that screening list, the last group of people, then it becomes very human again. You know what I mean? We need to have people interviewing people and meeting people because at the end of the day, that will be for a lot of companies who we're going to work for, who we're going to interact with, and it either makes or breaks because if the unit is good and it's strong and it works well together, people don't want to leave. So the recruiting fees drop down, the retention goes up, and all that training stays in that group rather than when people are leaving, now you have to retrain, you know what I mean? It's very expensive, right? So anyways, I hope that answered that question.
I love that. I love that. We have two more questions, and the almost last question will be: what question should people be asking you inside the evyAI community? What do
Hmm.
you wish more people knew to bring to you?
Yeah, that's great. I think inside the evyAI community, we're all trying to help each other with referrals. What I do find it's amazing is if new people come in, a lot of people want to help them get up to speed, like to further their onboarding and answer questions. I'm in about 5 or 6 school communities. evyAI is by far the most interactive, the most engaged group of users. People are bending over backwards to help each other. It's a phenomenal thing to see, and I'm not, blowing smoke at anybody. Like I said, I'm in other communities, and their calendar is dead. No one's interacting. I've gone in and tried to get some stuff going, and it kind of, and then, but whereas you come to evyAI, and there are people saying, Jane, Monday, every day, every week at 1 o'clock, and then Rick Clody's got something, and B. Randall's got something. It's all these people volunteering their time
Yeah,
to interact. So the question, I guess, is really to me it's a business development thing. For a lot of people, small businesses, it's an ROI thing. How can we help each other on the business development side? How can we refer each other to our avatars, primarily, like our client avatars, right? And I think if that is a focus for a lot more people, the meet and greets are great, but I think that's where rubber meets the road. We're all business people. We're all running businesses. We're all consultants. And it's that kind of thing that I think we primarily need to focus on. How can I help you? How can I be of service to you? Is there anybody I can introduce you to? You know?
yeah. I love that. That's actually so insightful. And thank you so much, Lance. I will say that, as I said, you're one of the most recent members of the community, but also one of the ones that became really, really important, right?
Thank
Uh,
you, Juan.
we asked them, we all of the people have just good words for what you are, right? So, Lance, I would like to close this ABAI spotlight with the next question. Share some final words with the ABI community. What do you want to leave people with today?
Yeah, thanks, Juan. Thanks for your kind words too. I think to follow up with what I was saying was keep the spirit alive, right, of this community. Volunteer time. Offer to do a posting party on maybe a Thursday or a Tuesday, or if there isn't one on the calendar that day, and host. Because it doesn't take much time, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, but it lets the other members find another window in their schedule to join. Rick, amazing. Twice a month on Saturdays, he offers like I think it's 11:30 Eastern. Just ask Rick. You know, that's fantastic because if you can't make it during the week, you have this option to maybe join Rick on Saturday. Joe occasionally shows up on a Saturday, randomly just pops into a call, right? Throws some nuggets from heaven at everybody and so on. So yeah, so to answer that question in 5 million words or less, volunteer some time, be a part of the community, help out, and you will find others helping you back. That would be my note.
Thank you so much, Lance. I think that this is going to be one of the best interviews so far. And yeah, I will say that will be for me, for all the people that are inside of the evyAI community. Remember to pick up the phone, remember to follow up, and actually to have conversations. As Lance said, the thing that is going to change, sorry, the thing that is going to keep up in the long term is going to be real human connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are here.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. See you on the next one. Bye bye.
Thank you, Juan. Take care. Ciao.
Bye bye.